Kia ora, tēnā koutou, no mai, haere mai. Hello everyone, welcome to the Walking the Shadowlands podcast. Join me as we take a walk into the realms of the unexplained, of the paranormal, of things that go bump in the night and haunt your dreams.
Your hosts?
I'm Marianne. Thanks so much for joining me today, tonight, whatever time it is, wherever you live in this beautiful world of ours. Sit back and relax. Let me be your guide as we walk into the Shadowlands together and see what awaits us there. Welcome to Halloween night, that mystical evening when the veil between the worlds is at its thinnest, and whispers from the past seem to draw just a little bit closer. For Wiccan and pagan communities, it's a night of profound celebration, and for many others, it's the festival of tricks, treats, and ghoulish gatherings. Kids and those young at heart don costumes to embody the spirits of Halloween, and homes flicker with carved pumpkins and eerie decor. Our October the 31st celebration aligns with Samhain, the ancient Gaelic festival that marked the change of seasons and was believed to dissolve the boundary between the realms of the living and the departed. For countless cultures, it's a time to honour those who came before, to share ghostly tales, to watch spine-chilling films, and to dive into the thrill of being deliciously spooked. Here in the Southern Hemisphere, Halloween may not have the same prominence as it does in the North, but for some, its magic is unmistakable. Tonight, in honour of Halloween's dual presence across the globe, we bring you the episode for the second Halloween Eve. So, settle in, dim the lights, just enough to let the shadows dance around you. Keep your senses on edge. Is there something lurking in the corner, or is it just your imagination? Get cozy with a warm cuppa or your favourite drink, perhaps a blanket, if there's a chill in the air, and remember, if you hear something in the dark, it's probably nothing. Or is it? Are you ready to walk with me once again into the Shadowlands to see what mysteries lie waiting? If you're brave enough to join, then let's begin.
It's Halloween!
Funeral Home Ghost from Black Bonnie G12.
This actually happened to me and my mom. So she's my witness. And I know people think when I tell this story, it's like this girl is chasing, she reaching. Not. Okay. So we had a pastoral banquet, our pastoral anniversary banquet. And so it was on a Sunday, last day of the banquet. And we got the chairs from no other place than a funeral home. So we returned the chairs, of course, back to the funeral home. But my mom called a lady like, hey, we're getting ready to bring the chairs. And so the lady was like, just take the chairs, drive around to the back and put them by the door on the back because no one is there because we're at a funeral. Remember that part, okay? Cool. So when me and my mom go drop the chairs off, we just unloading the chairs because we're not knocking on the door or nothing because she said there's nobody there. Okay, great. We unloading the chairs and everything. And then I said, Ma, I think I seen that curtain move like that. I guess she didn't hear me because she kept unloading everything and was just going on. And then after that, somebody opened the door. This big brown-skinned, bald-head guy opened the door, heavy set. And my mom was like, oh, you scared me. That man said, oh, I was just sleeping. And then he goes to say, it's not the dead you should be afraid of. It's the ones that are alive that will kill you. Anyways, so we continue on. My mama, she go ahead, boom, unload the chairs, whatever. And the man proceeds to get the chairs from us and take them inside. But here's the thing. Whole time the man was unloading the chairs, he never got the chairs off the truck. He only put the chairs inside of the funeral home. So he never stepped out of the funeral home itself. But we panicked, no mind, whatever. So we get all the chairs unloaded. That man told us, now y'all have a blessed day now. We get in the car, Mom probably got 30 seconds down the road and had to pull over at a gas station because she literally was scared shitless. Literally had to go take a shit because she was scared shitless. So after that, we told our encounterment to a family member. And my aunt, she's very nosy, very nosy. So she not called up to the place. She goes up to the place and was like, oh, I just came to let you know that my sister dropped the chairs out. And the lady said, yeah, we got her from off the back porch. No, the man helped her put them on the inside. The lady said, what man? She like the man that was here with the suit on. This man had on a suit and his tie was untied on a suit. Then my aunt looked over to a picture and it was the man on the picture. The dead man helped us put the chairs inside the funeral home. So we thought, we don't even know who this man is. And see, we've used this funeral home before because it's like a community funeral home or whatever. I've never seen that man ever before until that day. And obviously, I've never seen him afterwards for obvious reasons. But yeah, that's what happened.
Poltergeist at Friend's House from Garrett Books.
When I was in the 4th grade, I was best friends with this kid in my class, and he would always stay the night with me a lot. And so after several months of this, I was really annoyed about it because we never stayed the night at his house or anything. We always stayed the night at my house, and this was boring for me because I wanted to stay the night at somewhere that wasn't my house. And so after a while of asking him, he would always blow me off. He finally was like, okay, fine, like you can come stay the night at my house, but if anything weird happens, you can't freak out about it. And that should have been like a sign, but you know, at the time I was like, what? He must mean like his parents get in fights or something. Whatever, it's fine. So we go over there, and it's an old school Victorian style house. And if you saw this house in a movie, you'd be like, man, that house is definitely haunted. But you know, whatever. They give me the tour of the house, and his bedroom was on the opposite side of the house from his parents' room. This is a big house. And the room next to his bedroom, it shared an adjoining wall, was this like big walk-in closet that had hats and coats and shoes and all sorts of stuff, I guess, that wouldn't fit in their normal closets, all in this room, but it was all really well organized and everything along the walls and hung up and everything. And so that night after dinner, as 4th grade boys are gonna do, we wanted to stay up all night playing video games. So we're sitting there, we're crushing Mountain Dews, we're playing Mortal Kombat 2, having a blast. And it's very late, I don't know what time, 2, 3 in the morning, I don't know. All of a sudden, there is just this like a slam into the wall from that walk-in closet room. Something slams into the wall. And I look over at him like, and he just looks annoyed, okay? And he's, I told you if you were gonna come stay here, if anything weird happened, you can't freak out, you told me. So I'm trying to power through. I'm trying to be a good friend. So I'm like, all right, man, you know, I'm not gonna freak out. So a few minutes go by, we're still playing our game. Something else slams into that wall, super loud. Again, I look over at him like, what's going on here? And he's, dude, I told you. So it happens again. And he's, man, I'll show you in a little bit. And so we keep playing, but I'm getting really weirded out. And then all of a sudden, I can't describe it in any way other than it sounded like all of a sudden there was like a tornado in that room. Okay, like it sounds like stuff is slamming into the walls. They're scratching against the walls. Stuff is going crazy. And this goes on for several minutes, okay? And at this point, I'm not doing great, okay? I'm sitting there trying to tough through it, but I'm not doing a great job. Anyway, this goes on for several minutes, and finally it stops. It just abruptly stops. And then several minutes go by, and then he's like, all right, I told you I'd show you, so come look. So we get up, we go to this room. I'm freaking out. He opens the door. Everything in this room, in this walk-in closet, is like in the middle of the floor. Everything is torn off the hangers, everything. All of it's piled up. It's absolutely insane. And he's, oh, this happens every once in a while, and it'll all be back on the hangers. Everything will be fine in the morning.
Demonic Encounter from Ellie Lee Dawn.
So I've got ghost stories for days because my family has been basically terrorized and stalked by a demonic entity for close to 20 years now. This was one of the first major experiences that I had in my childhood home. Scares the absolute shit out of me to this day. So I was about 12 or 13 years old when this happened, and I'll give you kind of like the layout of the upstairs of my house for this story to make sense. So the upstairs of my house was basically like you come up the stairs and there is just one long hallway with all of the rooms jutting off of it. At the top of the stairs to the left is the master bedroom, my mom's bedroom, and then down the hallway there are the other bedrooms that branch off of it. My bedroom was on the right side of the hall at the end, and my older sister's bedroom was at the very end of the hall, like opposite end of the hall from my mom's. So, like I said, when this happened, I was probably 12 or 13 years old. I was sitting in my bedroom with my door open, and I was the only one home at the time. So I hear these footsteps coming up the stairs. We had these old wooden stairs that were very creaky, like you could not sneak up on anybody with those stairs. Like, they creaked if you even looked at them the wrong way. And these were really heavy footsteps. And so, like, my brain is thinking that it's my sister, because my sister had really heavy footsteps. So I'm thinking she must have come home and she's coming up the stairs. And I really was just like a little freaked out, but not paying much attention. And then these footsteps reach the top of the stairs and they just stop. Like somebody is standing at the top of the stairs at the end of the hallway. At this point, the footsteps have stopped for an uncomfortably long time. Like, I should have heard my sister walking down the hallway by this point, so I start calling out to her, calling her name, and I'm getting no response. And then all of a sudden, this is straight out of a fucking horror movie, these footsteps start up again. But it's not walking. They take off in a full-on sprint down the hallway, these heavy footsteps. And my brain is still trying to rationalize this, like, it's my sister. It has to be my sister. And I'm thinking, because if it's my sister and she's running into her room, she's going to have to pass my door. So I'm going to see her and I'm going to see who it is. Well, the footsteps are getting closer and closer. They're right in front of my door. They pass my door into my sister's room, and my sister's door slams shut. There was nobody there. Nobody passed my room. Nobody ran into my sister's room, yet the footsteps went in there, the door slammed, and that was it. Needless to say, I was like horrified. I was terribly freaked out, and I went outside and sat outside by the pool until somebody came home because I didn't want to go back in the house.
A protective graveyard ghost from La Larissa.
When I was 16, I lived literally in the middle of BF nowhere. I was in Texas, and I got a bicycle for my 16th birthday. And I was super excited because that meant I basically had like my freedom. So I would just ride around on my bicycle. And since I was in the middle of nowhere, it was just like a bunch of like dirt roads, and you would end up in like the back of people's properties. And it was like rural, like nobody really cared what you were doing out there. So I realized if I went about half an hour ride on my bicycle, I would get to the edge of this person's property, and in the back of their property they actually had a graveyard, and it was a really old graveyard. A lot of the tombstones were listed from like really late 1800s to like early 1900s, like 1903. Like, they're really old, and it was so obvious that nobody kept up with the graveyard. Everything was dirty and overgrown. And of course, like, I thought I was like 16 and edgy and cool, so I'd go hang out in the graveyard. But then eventually I started going there maybe like once or twice a week, and I started cleaning things up just because I felt bad about these people who were obviously like forgotten about. And I remember there was these two headstones that I was specifically attracted to, and I'm assuming the woman died like in childbirth, or like her and her kid must have gotten ill around the same time. But it was like a woman, and she, from like her birth date to like her death date, was literally around like the same age as I am like right now. And I was just like, that's a shame that she, died so young, and then like her baby's tombstone was right next to her. Well, I would just go and I would like clean everything up. Well, this one day, I honestly, and I'm not someone who really I believe in the paranormal just because I've seen a couple of things that I can't explain, but I do feel like a lot of paranormal things aren't actually real, and it's just people making shit up. But this actually happened, and I went to the graveyard that day. Up until then, I had never felt anything creepy. I never felt weird. Everything was always really chill. And I was over at their tombstones, just cleaning everything up, pulling some weeds. And mind you, it was a completely still day. Like, there was no wind. It was the middle of the summer. It's hot outside. There was literally no wind. And I'm sitting there and I'm like cleaning things up, and I get the strongest smell of perfume. Like, I'm talking, it suddenly smelled like I was standing in the middle of a field of flowers. Like, it was just like super strong. And I felt not dread. I don't think dread is the right word, but I felt like this overwhelming feeling of you need to leave, like you need to get out of here. And it was calm. It didn't feel threatening. I just felt like it was almost like an audible, like someone told me like you need to leave. And I literally remember I didn't even think twice about it. I was like, I need to get out of here. And I literally packed up all my little things. I always have like my little headphones. I didn't put my headphones in. I got on my bike and I pedaled my ass back home so fast. And like, I just remember having the feeling of like, you need to leave and you can't come back. And I left, and literally that was it. Like, I stopped going. I didn't go back there. I never felt threatened by whatever was out there, but I just felt like you can't go back. You need to not come back here. 2 weeks later, it was in the news that a woman who had been jogging along that same road that I rode my bike almost every single day was abducted and killed by somebody, and they never found out who. And to this day, I really feel like whether it was that woman whose headstone I was cleaning or somebody else in that graveyard who maybe just appreciated the fact that I cared about them, gave me that warning to leave and kept that from happening to me. So that's my story.
The UK Guardian program from Mark Sebastian.
So this was something that I learned about when I was living in London for a while. I learned about it in the creepiest way possible. But in the UK, they have these things called property guardians, right? It's like a program for people who are low income. I guess you don't always have to be low income, but usually they were, where you would become the guardian of a giant abandoned property. It doesn't always have to be giant. It could be like an office building, a old school, an old hospital. In the case of the guy that I was seeing, he was staying in a former Afro-Caribbean funeral home. With the whole works, right? There's funeral parlors, there's like the back part, which is, I don't even know if it's considered a morgue, but like where they would embalm the bodies. They had this large walk-in fridge thing, the tables, like his bedroom was set up in the former office of the funeral director. He was like, I could pick any room, but that one was like the least creepy. I'm obviously, by the way, this is the first date. He's telling me all this, right? I start asking questions. I'm like, what's going on? That sounds fucking creepy. I don't want to tell you because I think you're going to think I'm insane. Let's hang out a couple more times and then I will let you know what's going on. If ever a way to get me to hang out with you another time, that's it. Finally, probably like fourth, fifth date, I'm always bugging him, being like, tell me. And he's no. Fourth or fifth date, he gets super drunk and goes, I regularly wake up to the sound of music emanating throughout the entire place, except every time I go to try to figure out where it's coming from, I open my bedroom door and it stops. I'm going, huh? And it's even worse is that I will very often latch the fridge door closed and wake up in the morning to it being open. He's asleep over one night, and I'm telling you, there's a good chance that one of those things will happen. I'm going, this guy is making up these stories, so I'm gonna sleep over. Oh my God, this guy is down bad. You're also not allowed to have people at those properties, right? You're guarding this giant property, so you're not supposed to have guests. That's why people don't have parties. We ended up getting really fucked up at a warehouse that he lived near. He's just come sleep at mine, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Against my better judgment, I go. He shows me around the place. It's honestly not even that creepy, right? The walls are painted yellow, there's illustrations. It doesn't read to me as super haunted. I pass out, I end up waking up at 5:36. The sun is starting to come up. He is passed out next to me. I'm thinking in my head, I need to go back to sleep because if I start hearing this music, I am out of there. I'll die, simply. As soon as that thought comes into my mind, I swear to you, I start hearing this music. Ever so softly, it's like Caribbean music. I'm thinking in my head, wow, that Molly must be hitting hard because there's no way that this is happening. I nudge him awake. He goes, you hear it? And I was like, are you insane? That's gotta be like a car passing by. It's not a car. I don't know where it's coming from. Open the bedroom door, it'll stop. I go over, I open the bedroom door, music stops. He's like, turn the corner, see if the fridge door is open. I turn the corner. I saw him close the fridge door when he gave me the tour, right? I go around the corner, it's open. I go, I am leaving now, I will never come back here. Dated him for a couple more months, ended up breaking up a little while after. Probably 2 years later, I'm broke. I need to get a place to live for super cheap. I end up calling this property guardianship because at that time I'd also heard about people staying in apartment buildings, like normal places. End up getting in contact with this girl. She's like, do you want to go see this office building today? I'm like, I don't know. I go there, it's super creepy. I'm not into it. We're talking outside. She's like, how did you hear about us? I tell her the story about the guy. She goes, you have no idea how often that happens to us. We have such a high turnover rate of property guardians because people will leave because they think that they're seeing things, they think that they're hearing stuff. She says that she doesn't know whether or not this stuff is actually happening or it's just because they're staying in these places by themselves and they're just getting really freaked out. But that happens at least every 2 or 3 out of 10 places.
The Air BnB from Gay by Dawn.
My birthday is the day before Halloween, and last year me and my fiance decided that we would take a road trip the weekend before because my birthday was like on a Monday. So we wanted to go somewhere that was like we haven't been before, but also like good for fall foliage and like just things to do. And we live in Western New York and we didn't want to go too far. So we decided that we would go to Ithaca, New York, which is just beautiful in the fall. But we wanted to stay somewhere like outside of Ithaca so we could drive in and enjoy the road trip part. So we looked at hotels and we didn't really find anything that was in our budget. And we've never done an Airbnb booking before, and we decided maybe it's time to look into that. So my fiance downloaded the app and she found a couple properties and we were talking back and forth. She was sending things to me and we decided on this place that was in Seneca Falls, New York, which is about an hour from Ithaca. So when we get there, there are people that are staying in the other apartment in this building. So it's just like a white house, but there's someone staying in the front apartment, like a family, and we feel a little bit better because we've never booked an Airbnb before and stayed in one. We've never been to Seneca Falls. We've seen Barbarian, so we're just like, at least there's another family here. When we walk in, you can tell that the place is a little bit older, but the bedroom area is refurbished and it looks a little bit newer and doesn't have that old kind of smell like the rest of the house does. So we put our stuff down and then we go to look at the rest of the house, but it's really fucking weird. So when you walk in and you go to the right, there's like a little hall that leads into the kitchenette where there's a couch and a really big TV. But in that hall, it's a part of the bathroom. So there's a shower on the one side of the wall, and then the other, there's a sliding door that leads you to like the sink in the bathroom. And then that room has another door that's accessible from the bedroom. So we're just like, this place is weird, but we vibe with it. So we decide we want to go to the store, make something for dinner in the kitchenette, and just have a chill evening. So later that night, we're cooking dinner and we're watching cartoons, and we decided we wanted to watch a horror movie. So I'm like, I'll go turn all the lights off. We'll make it fun. So I leave one lamp on in the bedroom area, and it's so far away from the rest of the house that once you walk in through that weird shower room, the light is only really illuminating part of that hall room, and then it doesn't really reach us, but it's like a night, just extra little protection. And then there's a sliding door that separates that weird shower hallway from the kitchenette. So I'm like, I'll close it like halfway, a little bit more than halfway, and that way we get some of the light from the hallway. We can see into the bedroom, but we're still in darkness. So I sit down and the last light is the lamp that's next to me. I turn it off and we start watching the movie. Mind you, all of the windows and the blinds are like closed and drawn, so there's really no noises coming from outside. And the people that are in the other apartment, you can occasionally hear them if they're laughing or talking really loud. It seems like they're playing a card game because there's some laughing and shouting going on. But once we have the TV on and there's a movie on, you can barely hear it. They're down. It's like when you hear someone down the hall. You can hear it, but since there's doors and windows closed, it's very, very muffled. So we start watching this movie, and out of the corner of my eye, I'm seeing underneath the doorway, there's this shadow. Some of the light that's reflecting on the floor is being overtaken by darkness, and it's just faintly, and it's walking, like it's pacing back and forth. I don't know if it's walking, I don't know what it is, but it's just going back and forth underneath the doorway. And then I can also, like when I actually look up, because you know when you see something and you just ignore it, I'm trying to ignore it, but when I look up, it's like on the corner of the door there's this other blackness kind of encroaching. It's like you can't see the edge of the door frame that's partially closed because this blackness keeps coming in. So I'm just trying to ignore it. I shouldn't be ignoring it, but I am. And then in my ear, I'm hearing like this whispering. And I don't really remember the words that they're saying. I know one of them was leave, but it's just very, very weird noises and words all mumbled in my ear. I just keep hearing this mumbling. And I'm like, this is strange. So I don't say anything because it's over here. My fiance is on this side of me and I don't want to freak her out. So we continue to watch the movie, and then whatever was whispering in my ear must have been pissed that I was ignoring it, because right in front of my face, right in front of my fucking face, it shouts, like, get out, get out, very, very drawn out. So I'm frozen, because I'm like, this something is like right in front of me, shouting at me to get out, and it was in my ear trying to tell me to leave, and I didn't listen to it. And I immediately look at my fiance, like when I can move my head, and I'm like, did you hear that? And she's like, no. And I'm like, the window is closed, right? And she's like, yeah, like everything, the whole 9 yards, trying to debunk it. So then I don't know how, but I managed to be like, can I turn this light on, and reach my hand out to the darkness? And my fiance was immediately on board with it. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe something is freaking her out, or maybe I'm freaking her out. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to turn this lamp on. So once I turn the light on, I feel a little bit better, but it's still just, what was that? I'm still thinking about it. It's so we finished the movie, and then I'm immediately like, okay, time to go to bed. And I'm like in the bedroom because I just cannot be there anymore. So once we're in the bedroom, I think I might have said something like, yeah, there's like something talking to me, something yelled at me, or just a very simple explanation of why I was so afraid. But I didn't want to scare my fiance. I didn't want to have to like make us leave. So I don't know how I managed how. We must have had some kind of melatonin, but I zonked out once we were in bed. So the next day, we're kind of like, I want to talk about it more, and I'm trying to bring it up, and we get ready. We don't really talk about it. And then once we're in the car, we have a good opportunity to kind of like talk about what happened. So then I finally say, okay, here's exactly what happened. It yelled at me. It didn't want us here. It told us to get out. It was right in front of my face, yelling at me. There's no mixing that up with anybody that's in the other apartment, because it was right in front of my face, and it sounded very gruff and wispy and angry. So then my fiance goes to say, oh yeah, well, you know how, and I must have forgot to say this, but she got up at one point when the lights were still off, bless her soul, and went and closed that sliding door all the way. So she tells me, yeah, I got up and closed that door because I kept seeing things peering around the door frame and looking at us. And I'm thinking, okay, I saw the exact same fucking thing, and it makes sense that it would have been pacing and looking at us, because if it doesn't want us here, it's like, what the fuck are you doing here? So once we talk about it, we just erupt into this whole conversation about, oh my God, we were encroaching on this ghost's territory. And I was really excited because we've had paranormal experiences before. We've been ghost hunting, but never anything that crazy. So we're in the car, we're talking about it all day. And then on the way home, we're kind of like, do we even want to really stay here? It's really angry that we're here. And it's not so much that we're scared. It's more, we are encroaching on its territory, and it's angry, and who knows what could happen. So we decide to leave early. So we go back after our day out, and we pack our stuff, and we gather all of our things. And I'm really avoiding that kitchen area because I can just feel like, even with the window open, it's darkness and like just scary in there. We go to leave, and I'm obviously like, I'm sorry that we stayed here and invaded your space. And we were looking in the guest book, and no one had said anything about anything weird happening to them and everything. So I really fought the urge to write something that was like, we had someone else staying here with us. I just didn't want to do that. I didn't want to scare anybody. So I don't really know how old the house was. I have no idea if anything significant happened there or what kind of renovations went on and all that. But whatever was there was just angry, wanted to be left alone, and didn't really enjoy us sitting on the couch watching horror movies and eating snacks.
It's not my mother. From Fanny.
So to start this story, I'm going to say that I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains. So we're going to start with that. To save a whole lot of backstory and just give you a little bit so that way it makes sense. My parents were really young whenever I was born. I'm talking 14 and 16. And so for a chunk of my life, my grandparents took care of me. My mother moved into a trailer that was next door to her parents. I want to say at this point in time during the story, I was about 5. Could not have been older than 5. So that puts my parents at 19 and 21, okay? And the bedroom that was mine whenever I stayed there, it was essentially a glorified closet, okay? Dimensions, 7 foot wide, like when you stick your arms out, maybe 7 feet by 10 feet deep, okay? Like a glorified closet, okay? So I have a small twin mattress in there, and then there's a little nook, or I guess nook, where I had a bookcase and a little light that you could flip on and off. That was my nightlight. So, trailer was set up, walk in the door, living room, hallway, my room, and then a bathroom, and then their bedroom was in the back, okay? My dad's family had a nickname. Essentially, all the grandkids had nicknames. My nickname was Girly, okay? I feel it was ironic because I was not girly. I was essentially a boy. I mean, I ran around with no shirt on. I played Hot Wheels. is essentially just a sarcastic, ironic nickname. I was girly. So my mother didn't call me that. Only my dad's family and my dad called me girly. And that's a very key piece of information. My mother never called me girly. She called me Tiff. So one night I'm at my parents' house, staying the night, and from the hallway I hear my mother. She's like, Curly, Curly, in a whisper. And everybody recognizes their mom's voice, and so it wakes me up. Curly, Curly. But I don't see her. And I'm like, what? Because I'm a little kid, and he woke me up whispering, Curly, Curly. And I'm like, what? Nothing. She never comes to my room, doesn't say anything else, nothing. Curly, Curly. And I finally sit up, and I'm like, what? Because I'm a little kid that gets woke up at, I don't know what time it is. It's dark. It's past dark time, okay? So I sit up, and I'm like, what? And about this time, because my bedroom door's open. Now, mind you, I'm in a closet, okay? My bedroom is essentially a closet, so there's nowhere to go. This time, my mother stands in front of my doorway, and it's not my mother, okay? My mother has holes for eyes, okay? And it's her face, but her jaw is way open. Her mouth is way open, and there's no teeth in there. And my mother's kind of big. Like, she's always been heavy, okay? And it has on her nightgown, the nightgown she had on. And I remember it because she had this nightgown for years. It was like a medium-colored blue, and it had little stars and moons all over it, okay? This thing had my mother's nightgown on, had her big upper body. We all have the bat wings, so, you know, bigger upper body. But this thing had a little skinny toothpick. If you could imagine somebody that weighs like 90 pounds, how skinny their legs would be, but with somebody that weighed 250 pounds upper body. And I mean grotesquely skinny legs, like not just a thin person, but bone with flesh wrapped around it for legs and feet. And that's not how my mom is built. She's got her upper body and lower body match. She's big up top, big on the bottom, okay? And whatever this thing is standing in my doorway has my mother's face, but there's 2 black holes for eyes, a gaping open mouth with no teeth in there, and bones for legs. And it's standing in my doorway of a 5-year-old me, not saying anything, but not coming in. And I'm petrified. I can't move. I don't know if I breathed. It felt like eternity, okay? But it was realistically maybe only 2 or 3 seconds. And then it turns, and it walks towards the living room, and I can hear it walking in the same pattern my mother walks, okay? And then I don't hear it anymore. But it doesn't sound like it went anywhere. It sounds like it took maybe 10 steps, which would be just enough to get into the living room out of the hallway, and I don't hear anything else. And I'm terrified. Like, I'm shaking. I'm terrified. And I start going, like I'm trying to yell for my mom, but I can't make my volume happen, okay? And so finally I yell, Mama! And then I hear her coming from her bedroom down the hallway. And now I'm terrified because I'm thinking, what if this thing gets my mother? And she comes in the room and she's, what? And I was like, you was calling for me. And I couldn't tell her what had happened. I'm crying because by the time I see my real mom, she's wearing the nightgown the thing had copied, but it's actually my mom at this point. She comes in my room and I'm like, you were hollering for me. And she was like, we're asleep. Like, I was not hollering for you. And I'm crying at this point. I can't even tell her what's wrong. I want my mom, you know, I mean, I'm 5. So she gets in the bed with me, and she was startled enough that she had put my ball bat by the bed. That's how scared, you know, I guess I scared her that bad. Because she's 19 at the time, too. And so she sleeps in there with me that night. And time goes by, okay, this is a decade later. Actually, more than a decade. This is 13 years later. There's a big age gap between me and my baby sister. We're almost 11 years apart, okay? She's a young child. I never told her the story about what happened. I never told her about this. I never even really told our mother what happened fully. So my little sister, near the same age, she couldn't have been older than 7, okay? And she doesn't tell me this story either until she's almost an adult, okay? But the way she recounts to me is she's no older than 7, or she could be younger, okay? She's laying in this is a different house, okay? So not even the same house, same street, different house. She's in our mother's room that she shares with her dad, okay? My sister's dad. And what's the details? She wakes up, I believe, and laying in the bed with her is essentially the same thing I saw. It looked like our mother, had 2 holes and almost like our mother's face, but it was not our mother, okay? And so my sister's freaking out, backing off the bed, crying for her dad to come, because the thing that's our mother is not our mother is in the bed with her. And then she said it's like it goes away and it's gone. But she had chalked it up, they had chalked it up to essentially, oh, she just woke up and was confused. But when she told me that, I was like, no, I know exactly what you've seen, because I've seen the exact same thing. And I think it's absolutely bananas that we never told each other the story, and we've seen essentially the same thing over 10 years apart in 2 different houses. And can't get any explanation of why or how or what it was. What I think it is I think our mom essentially just has such negative energy attached to her that's just a manifestation of the negative energy that's attached to her. And we've seen it.
Boyfriend Mimic from Lowestoft Lane.
I am going to be talking about mimic spirits, and if you don't know what those are spirits that poses people that you know in order to interact with you and have a better chance at interacting with you, and they are usually not nice. And I don't know if this was a mimic or what exactly this was, but the intervals for the story happened from October 2023 to January 2020, or October 2022 to January 2023. So to set the scene, I am at my boyfriend's parents' house. I am coming home for a weekend from college, and they had just gotten this huge wood wick candle, and they really wanted me to listen to it, so they lit it, because if you've never heard a wood wick candle, they crackle instead of don't make any noise, and they sound pretty cool. So I'm typing my paper at their dining room table, or their kitchen table, and I'm really honing in on listening to this candle. My boyfriend is not there, and my boyfriend's parents have their backs facing to me watching TV. I'm listening, when suddenly I hear my boyfriend's voice, "Hey, Lane," come from behind me. So I turn around and I'm looking, and these people are pretty religious, and you wouldn't expect anything to happen in their house, so I thought it was my boyfriend. So I got up, I went into the dining room with the lights off, and I'm looking around for him, and I can't find him. And I'm calling out to him, walking around this house, calling out to him, no response. I text him, and I'm like, "Where are you?" He comes downstairs and I was in my room, what's going on? And I think my face was a little freaked out, because at that point I had turned my back towards his parents so that if something were to happen, I was close enough to them where they would see it too. And I'm like, "I heard your voice, like, why are you fucking with me?" He told me essentially that he had been in his room for the last hour and it wasn't him, and he promises me that it wasn't him. So at this point, his parents were like, "Everything okay? What's going on?" And I was like, "I heard Andrew's voice, but Andrew wasn't there. I've never experienced something like that." And they're like, "It's fine, whatever." It not essentially happens, but they were just like, "Just leave it." And that's what I did. I just left it. And anyone who knows me in real life knows that my scariest stories come from me trying to be rational, because they're like, I usually freak out and I'm like, "That's a ghost," instead of saying, "Oh, it's science." But when it's the opposite way and I'm like, "Oh, it was science," it's usually a spirit. And I left it alone, and it never happened again. And it's important to note that my boyfriend's parents didn't have a dog at that time, and in January of 2023 they got a dog. His name is Oakley. He's a Wheaton. He's very cute. And one night I took my boyfriend out to eat, and we were away, and when we got back the following morning, so we were out all, my boyfriend's dad pulls me aside and I heard it too. And I was like, "What did you hear?" Because it had been months at that point and I had no idea what he was talking about. He goes, "Andrew's voice. I heard Andrew's voice." And my blood ran cold. I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes on and proceeds to tell me that last night he heard Andrew open the garage door and go into the bathroom right next to the garage door and say, "Hey, I'm home." He responds back to it, and he knows he's not crazy because the dog got up, Oakley, and he walked towards the garage door. And when Oakley wasn't coming back, he got up and went to go see what it was about. Then the bathroom door was open and nobody was there. He checks Andrew's room. He's not there. So I have a couple questions. What the hell was that? What is that? And there's another story that his sister had about this thing 2 or 3 months later. And it happens in 2 to 3 month intervals. We haven't heard it since 2023. And it is by far one of the scariest things that ever happened to me, because why does it sound like my boyfriend?
Batman from BB Small SMB.
Growing up, my brother and I had rooms right next to one another. One night, he wakes me up in the middle of the night and he's, "You have to get out of bed. Batman is in my chalkboard." So, of course, I'm going to go see. I get out of bed and he has one of those old school green chalkboards. And sure enough, there's Batman. Now, this isn't like an action figure or a drawing. It looks like a tiny little person dressed like Batman, and it's almost in the background of the chalkboard. And so this is so cool. I'm looking at it and it starts coming towards the surface almost of the chalkboard, and it's getting bigger as this happens. I get a little scared and take a step back. My brother goes right for it and puts his hands out like this for Batman. Next thing I know, my brother turns around and his hands, excuse me, Stoney, his hands are filled to the top, mounded with M&Ms. Like, I thought it couldn't get any better. So I'm so excited. I'm like, we have to go show mom and dad. So he takes off. I'm following him. He has his hands out like this. And at the time, my parents used to lock their bedroom door. Now, none of us wants to think about why that was a thing. So my brother's standing like this, and I'm next to him, banging on the door, yelling for my parents. My groggy parents get up, they answer the door, and they're like, "What's going on?" My brother's standing there like this, and I'm like, "Oh, Batman was in the chalkboard, and then he put his hands out, and he gave him a minute." And I look, and his hands are empty. Now, decades later, my brother and I both remember this vividly. We have the exact same account of what happened, except my brother told me that after this happened, a little Batman toy showed up in his room that he did not have before. And I guess it always really freaked him out, and he would keep it in the bottom of a drawer. And when he was 18 and moving out of the house, he found it and he took it and put it outside in the garbage can because it freaked him out so much. So since then, he's moved several times in his life, and he's moving into his forever house with his family. He's unpacking. There's the Batman toy. Now, he's moved multiple times and never seen it. And it's been 15, 20 years. But there it is. So I'm visiting him in San Diego in July. It's super hot outside. And he's telling me about the Batman, which he has. And he goes to get, which he keeps it in his garage. I don't know why. I guess he figured it's just going to keep coming back. And as he's showing me the Batman, we hear a loud bang outside. Now, we were the only ones awake. He lives in like a gated community, and he has gates around his house. Nobody should be out there. So of course I want to go investigate. He reluctantly comes with me, and we slowly go out the door, and we're looking around. And on the ground, right in front of the door of the room that we were in, the outside room, it looks like a puddle of water had dropped. Where this water came from, there was not a cloud in the sky. There wasn't like AC residue. It was in the middle of the sidewalk. Nothing's above it. To me, it looks like a skull. It looks like the water dropped in the form of a skull.
The Dopplegangers from Marissa 1.
Okay, so this happened in 2009, and I had either just graduated high school or I was about to. And my boyfriend was living with us at the time, and we were in our bedroom, and my mother and her boyfriend at the time would get into very loud, like angry fights. So when that would happen, we would usually leave the house when it would start getting uncomfortable. So this particular night, they were screaming at each other, and we left out the back door. So the way that our house is set up, when you walk into the front door, you're in the living room, and there's a hallway that to the left is the bedrooms, and to the right is the bathroom and the kitchen where the back door is. So while they were fighting, we snuck through the hallway and went out the back door. And we were gone for a good 45 minutes, maybe an hour. And when we walked through the door, they were staring at us like eyes wide, and they looked scared, and we're like, what's going on? We had left before and come back, and it was never a big deal. And they asked us, well, how long have you been gone for? We said, I don't know, like 45 minutes, an hour maybe. And they looked even more shocked. So come to find out, they said that a few minutes before, about 15 minutes, we had apparently walked through the front door. We're giving them dirty looks. They were assuming because they were being too loud with their fight. And we looked angry, walked to the hallway, into our bedroom, and slammed the door shut. And this still gives me goosebumps to this day because we were like, what is going on? So we walked to the hallway and looked, and the bedroom door that we had left open when we left was completely shut. So I was scared, and my boyfriend at the time, of course, was scared too, but he decided to open the door. And as soon as he opened the door, it was obvious that the window was wide open, which we never left the window open. And the room was really cold. And mind you, like I said, it was around graduation time, so I remember it was really hot outside. And the AC didn't really reach my bedroom, so it was usually a little bit warm, but this night it was ice cold. And I was so freaked out that I didn't want to sleep in that bedroom that night. So we ended up sleeping in the living room, and it still freaks me out to this day. And this was the first time I had heard about any type of doppelganger situation, but either way, super scary to this day.
Mr. Alexander from Alton. Moses.
Anyone that grew up with me or had been in my house growing up could tell you that my house was extremely, extremely old, and it just was very creepy. There is something that I think about that still gives me the absolute heebie-jeebies, and it's not really something that I talked about with other people other than my mom. When I was younger, I think I moved into that house when I was like 7 or 8, and between 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, I had not like an imaginary friend. There was like a real man that I called Mr. Alexander that I talked to all the time. He asked me how school went. I would tell him. He asked me how practice went. I think I was playing soccer for Tri-Township at that time. I would tell him about my soccer practice. I don't remember a lot of our conversations, but the ones that I do remember were stuff like that. And my mom worked at a nursing home in town, and she just genuinely believed that sometimes when her patients would pass on, that they would come and visit me, and I was just they would visit her, but because I was so sensitive to stuff like that, I would see them, talk to them, etc. I don't remember a lot of it. I don't remember discussing it with my sister, my brothers, none of that. Well, Mr. Alexander went away my whole childhood. Like, I did not, when I like transitioned, I think out of elementary school and like into middle school and stuff, and you can sit here and think I'm crazy, that's fine, like I'm okay with that. I didn't see or talk to him or even remember him. Like, I did not think about him until I was about 16 or 17. My aunt had come to visit us, and she was going to stay the night. My aunt is, and anybody that knows her, and just by describing her, you'll know which aunt I'm talking about, the most down-to-earth, humble person, smokes a little weed once in a while. Like, she is definitely definition of the cool aunt. She's just a great human being. And she's never really been mad at me. I think one time I can think of her being mad at me, and this is the other time that I'm about to talk about 6:30, 7 o'clock. I have never in my life experienced anything like this with her. She was like jabbing me. Like, I'm talking full on, get up, wake up, super upset with me. I'm half awake. And I look up like, what is going on? She said, I'm very disappointed in you. I'm young, I've been there, done that, but you need to go speak to your mom and apologize and tell her. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She said, why did you think that it was okay to have your boyfriend over last night? I said, boyfriend? I said, what? And at this point, my stepdad was working overnights, my older brother was working overnights, and my other brother was in the army, so he's gone. So nobody was home. There was no males home. And she knew that, which I think is why this really set her off. She said, well, there's no way, even if one of them came home, it wasn't them, because this man was very, very tall. And my boyfriend at the time was over 6 foot, and my stepdad and brothers were not. She was like, well, it was definitely him, because he's tall, and he had the exact same build. And I'm like, still half asleep, very upset because she's basically yelling at me, and she's never yelled at me before. I'm like, no, he had a wrestling tournament a couple towns over. I don't know what you're talking about. By this time, we have made it out to the dining room, and my mom's up now, and she's telling my mom, like, you need to tell your mom you had a guy over last night. I'm like, I don't, stop. Like, I'm getting upset, she's getting more upset. My mom's, calm down. I don't think Autumn's lying. Like, I genuinely think he had a wrestling tournament out of town. I can always look on the school webpage and see what their schedule is, but I'm pretty sure I seen it on Facebook that they were going out of town this week. So I'm like, I told you, I'm not lying. I told you that. And my aunt was everything in her. You could tell that she had definitely seen a man. Like, she was not lying about that, because this is something that really upset her. She proceeds to describe this man, and my mom right away was like, oh, I know who that is. And I'm like, what? So here y'all are mad at me, and you know who that is? And my mom was like, yeah, she's describing to you Mr. Alexander. And it was like my stomach dropped. Every hair on my body went up. I thought I was going to throw up. I hadn't thought about seeing that man, nothing, in years. So I'm not really sure why all of a sudden he just kind of like popped back in just to check it out, I guess. I don't know. But I've never seen my aunt like that. And she really did see this man, and after she described him and kind of like what had happened, so my aunt was sleeping on the couch and I was sleeping on my bed, and I had a couch in my room, and she said this man kind of like walked by but was at the end of the couch near her feet, and kind of like, oh, she's awake, she's seen me, and then just kind of like skedaddled, basically turned around and walked out. And that's why she thought it was like somebody that it wasn't supposed to be, like my boyfriend, because it was like, oh no, I got caught. I swear to y'all, I've never seen her like that. And I know for a fact that she's seen this guy. I know that. And the second she described him, he's tall, he's this, he's that, I was like, okay, all right, she's not kidding. This is really him. And ever since then, I've just thought about, what did he want? Is he stuck in that home? Is he not crossing over? The afterlife really just freaks me out. Because why did I feel so comfortable talking to this random stranger who probably died 50, 60 years ago and was still checking up on me at 17? And he's not related to it. And that's something that we do know for sure. We don't have anybody in my family named Alexander. I've went through all of Ancestry, everything. This man was not related to me. Anyways, that's my ghost story.
The old owner says goodbye. From Mum and Grammy.
We bought this house about 8 years ago, and we bought it from an older couple. The husband was in pretty poor health. Their names were Melvin and Violet. And about 6 months after we moved here, I woke up. Some people say I was having a dream. I heard the door, and I said, hello. And I heard a man's voice say, Vi, is that you? And I said, Vi doesn't live here anymore. And the voice said, oh, I forgot. Take care of the place, will you? And I went back to sleep. The next day, the next door neighbor called me, and she said, I wanted to let you know Melvin passed away about 2:30 a.m. last night. I was like, oh my gosh. And so then, and I was glad I'd already told my husband about my dream or encounter. And so I had confirmation that it happened before. Well, we have a lamppost midway on our driveway, and when we bought the house, Melvin told us the only thing that doesn't work is the lamppost. Well, we wanted to get it fixed, but hadn't gotten in touch with an electrician. And one day I jokingly said, oh, Melvin, can you light up the lamppost for me? I've never seen it lit. I'm not kidding. I have pictures on my phone of it lit. I texted to my husband at work. It lit up. Broad daylight, it lit up, and it was lit the whole day. And it's never lit again. We haven't got it fixed yet. And then we have a sprinkler system. The association, there's 6 of us on it, and there were Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 7 a.m., sprinklers came on. Well, somebody had the bright idea to change it to Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 4 a.m. Well, I hadn't read the book yet, didn't know how to do it. And I was just like, I'll have to get out of bed and do it manually. Well, the first day, it was time for me to get up and turn it on. And I said, oh, Melvin, I wish you were here to program it. And all of a sudden, I just hear whooshing of water. And I'm like, haha, it's raining. I don't even need to do it. And then my husband says, oh, you got up and turned on the sprinklers already? I looked out the window and the sprinklers were going. They'd never operated at 4 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Ouija Mimic from Maddie Sally.
I was in high school. So I'll share the first story that led up to this main event, and then I'll talk about what really happened. So basically, I was in the 6th grade and I was having a sleepover with my friend, and I had no idea what a Ouija board was. No one's ever told me. This was early 2000s at this point. I just wasn't educated on it. And so, of course, me being a 6th grader, thinking it was a board game, I'm like, yay, board game, let's try something new. And so we were playing it. Nothing was really going on. We were asking some silly questions like, oh, who am I gonna marry when I'm older? And it wasn't really saying a whole lot. But looking back on it, something that kind of freaks me out is when we asked who we were talking to, it went to a Z. And I'm not gonna talk any further on that. And so we went upstairs to go get some water, some snacks, stuff like that. My parents asked me, what are you guys doing downstairs? And we say, we're playing the Ouija board. And my parents are like, nope, absolutely not. You are not playing that. Please stop doing that. And so we went downstairs, we closed it up, and what followed after that freaked me out. So we heard some voices that night, nothing crazy, honestly. It wasn't the super dramatic thing. But for years, I started hearing voices. I started seeing some things like people calling out my name in the middle of the night. I saw something in my closet, just random things here and there. I vividly remember when I was younger, this was middle school now. I don't remember the exact time, but my siblings were, young, and we were home alone. My parents were traveling that day. And so they were coming back home. We were alone. Our babysitter had left. And we all, for some reason, looked down to the right. And so that's where our hallway was. And we had a really long extended hallway. And then our parents' doorway was facing where that hallway was. And so we all look over at the same time. It was the weirdest thing. And we see this man, this really, really tall man standing there. And all of us say nothing. And we see this man turn and walk down the hallway. And so I look at them and I'm like, did you see that? And they're like, yeah. And I don't know what made us do this, but we went throughout the house and started trying to find if there was a man in the house. And if you've seen any horror movies, it's definitely not what you're supposed to do. Don't do that. But for some reason, that was the mindset at the time. And we searched everywhere. Nothing was there. So there was no man. And we start moving on, knowing that we had just seen some random dude in our house and he disappeared. And so for years after that, nothing crazy really happened. Again, sometimes I'd hear somebody walking in the house when I was home alone or in the middle of the night, but I just ignored it, tried not to give it any mind. But this is where the main event happens. So my brother passed away when I was in high school. And he lived in Tennessee with my other family. My parents are not together. So that side of the family told me the news, and I went out and flew out for the funeral. And so the day after the funeral, when I was flying home, my stepmom had lost her keys. And I went into her bathroom. She sets things in weird places. So she told me to look in her bathroom, look in her closet just to see if she dropped it. Try to find where the keys are so we can leave and go to breakfast together before I have to get on the plane. And I don't know what it was, but I felt such a difference in the air. The atmosphere went cold. I can't describe it. But if you've experienced something like this, it's a very eerie feeling. I felt like I was isolated, even though there were 3 other people in the house. But I was alone in that room. And all of a sudden I felt metaphorically cornered in the closet. And I heard my name being called with my brother's voice. And it's like time stopped. I knew it wasn't him because I thought that if it really was him, I wouldn't be freaked out. I wouldn't be feeling such a dark, gross feeling. Mind you, I'm already emotional because I loved my brother and he had just passed away. And so hearing his voice was like weird and it was emotional for me. And I ran out of that room because I felt like whatever was talking to me was not him and it wasn't safe. So I ran out and my stepmom had been calling for me for 10 minutes and I didn't hear her. So literally, it's like time had stopped. So I told them about this at breakfast and they're like, oh, I wish he would talk to me. And I'm like, but it wasn't him. This is the weird thing. It wasn't him, right? And so I go home, months go by, nothing happens. I'm grieving my brother, I'm sad. And I talk to him sometimes at that point. I still do, but during this story, I was talking to him sometimes and whatever it was that talked to me at my stepmom's house followed me to my house in Minnesota. So I was in Tennessee. That's where the first event happened. I'm back in Minnesota at my mom's house where the Ouija board thing had happened. We're keeping that in mind. So I go to bed one night. I'm the only one that lives upstairs, right? And so that's where like the front door is. My bedroom at the time was right next to the front door. And so we had a staircase going downstairs and that's where my parents and my siblings were. My mom would stay upstairs in the kitchen, dining room area until sometimes later in the night, just getting projects done. She's a very crafty person. So I went to bed knowing that she was within the vicinity. I felt safe. And what I did was I always closed the doors and closed the blinds before I went to bed because I had experienced some things. I was a little freaked out and I had already some nights experienced sleep paralysis and I was already on edge about that. So close all the blinds, close the doors, and I had my radio on and I start dozing off and my radio sounds slower and distorted all of a sudden. And I'm like, something's about to happen. And it did. So I felt like I heard the doors opening, but I was like, no, I'm going crazy. There's nobody else that would be, but it was both doors, like my closet door and my door to my bathroom that I heard opening. And I'm like, there's not two people in my room. There's no way. And I didn't even hear my room door open, the main door. And so I can't get up. I'm in sleep paralysis. I can't do anything. I can't talk. I can't open my eyes. I can't move. And all of a sudden I feel myself getting up and I'm like, this isn't me. This isn't me. And so I feel myself get out of bed, but I don't feel like I'm in control of my own body. And I feel myself like reach my hand out for my door. And I feel the doorknob. I start opening my door and all of a sudden I hear my brother's voice come from my bathroom and him saying, Maddie, I need to talk to you. And I don't know how, but somehow, some way I was able to talk in that moment. And I'm like, no, get out. I know this isn't you. I don't want to hear it. And I don't know what it was, but it was like, okay, I'll leave. Okay, you'll leave. Okay. But here I am like traumatized because, it's my brother's voice again. And I'm still grieving. This is only a couple months after he passed. And so I'm like, well, what if it was my brother? And I carried on that guilt for so long thinking, well, what if it was him? But it was that creepy feeling again. And I'm like, you know what? If this is really my brother, there is no way that he would do this to me, that he would freak me out, that he would try to do all this stuff. There's just no way. I feel like he would come and try to peacefully talk to me and have a conversation. But, that's a whole other conversation. And so I opened my eyes. Like after I muster enough courage, I open my eyes and all my doors are open, all of them. And nobody was upstairs. My mom is already fast asleep at this point. It was like midnight. And I know this story sounds crazy, but this really happened and it still freaks me out to this day.
The Stanley Hotel from Isaacs_random.
A couple years ago, I was in Estes Park, Colorado. I'm a wildlife photographer, so I was actually there looking for elk to photograph. And I've always just been fascinated with all this paranormal stuff. I love watching ghost shows. I love watching Sam and Colby on YouTube. It's all so fascinating to me, even though I've never had a paranormal experience up till this moment. It just was very fascinating to me. So Because of that, I wanted to stay in the Stanley Hotel, which is in Estes Park and is notoriously one of the most haunted hotels in the world. Sam and Colby have done multiple videos there and have captured some pretty crazy stuff. Anyways, I even decided to buy one of those little spirit boxes to see if I could communicate with anything while I was there. So I roll up to the Stanley, I get my room, and then I go back into my truck, got some dinner, and I drove back and was sitting in the parking lot of the Stanley, and I was FaceTiming my sister at this moment. And I was like, hey, should I open this spirit box up and try it out in the parking lot here? And we're like, yeah, sure, why not? So I open this spirit box, start asking questions for probably 10 minutes, not a single thing, no response whatsoever. So I was like, okay, this is dumb. But I was like, why don't I take it up to the room, see if I get anything there? So I go into my hotel room, which is very eerie, by the way. They've got all these pictures of like really old-timey photos of creepy old people standing there. You know how it is. And I'm still FaceTiming my sister, and I asked all kinds of questions while I was in the hotel room for probably another 10 minutes. Again, no response. So I say to my sister, I go, well, it clearly doesn't like me, so why don't you ask it a question? And I kid you not, clear as day, the spirit box goes, no, you ask it something. Like a sassy voice. I'm dead serious. It hadn't said anything this entire time until I say to my sister, you ask it a question, and it was almost like I was talking to some dude on the phone. It sounded that clear. It says, no, you ask it something. And I freaked out. I turned the spirit box off. My sister started freaking out over the phone. And to this day, I just can't explain it. I can't really debunk it. I'm a very rational person. So I've tried, and I've even taken apart the spirit box, and it's just the normally wired radio device. So anyways, it was quite the creepy night that night staying there alone. I slept with the lights on. But yeah, that's my story. So pretty weird stuff.
A kid that wasn't from Jazzberry Jam.
When I was 16, 17 years old, my bedroom was the attic of my parents' house. One night, I proceed to have one of the most real-feeling dreams I've ever had. In the dream, I'm sleeping in my bed. I wake up in the dream to an older woman standing in the corner of my bedroom. I do not know this woman, never seen this woman. She actually looked quite ghost-like, a little translucent. You could see through her a bit. Like, she looked like a ghost. She proceeds to ask me, I have a son. He needs someone to play with. Would you mind playing with him? Not sure why I chose to say yes, but I did. And I was like, yeah, I'll totally play with your son. That seems totally normal. Like, we're in a dream, so fine, I'll play with your son. As soon as I say, yeah, I'll play with your son, he appears, if I'm laying in my bed, like she's on this side, he appears on this side of the room, right where the stairs are, the top of the steps. And he starts to walk over to my bed, comes to my bed, and he's, let's play arm wrestling. So I'm like, yeah, no problem, let's play arm wrestling. So I put my hand up like this. He puts his hand in my hand, and we are arm wrestling. At first, it's like a good give and go. We're like, oh, yeah. And then he pins my hand completely down. I feel his hand around my hand, ice cold. He pins my hand down and is staring at me. And I'm like, okay, let's play again. And he goes, I don't think you want to play this game with me. Just like that, like dead stare. I don't think you want to play this game with me. So I'm like, what does that mean? Let's play the game. So he goes, no problem. Digs his nails into my hand like that and starts pinning my hand to the bed, yelling, I win, 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 I win. I rip my hand away from his. I feel the scratch marks on my right here. And then he takes a step back with this grin on his face, and he becomes this black cloud of smoke. And I know that sounds unreal, but just stay with me. So he's this big cloud of smoke. This is all still in the dream. I get up, I'm screaming, I jump out of my bed. Here's where it gets crazy. I jump out of my bed in the dream, and I wake up in real life, and I am fully standing on my feet. So as I'm standing on my feet, I'm like, what the fuck just happened? I'm down the stairs, out the room, right? And so my mom and my sister are downstairs in the kitchen cooking breakfast. My mom is a very spiritual person, so I have no problem just being like, yo, this is what just happened. Disregard the dream if you want, but I was fully standing when I woke up. Insane. And so typically, not saying typically like this happens all the time to me, but like my mom we regularly would have priests come over, bless the house, things like that. So that's not weird. So like my mom throwing holy water around the house is not like an odd thing in my household. So like I'm expecting her to be like, okay, let me go get the holy water. I'll spray your room down. Like, not a big deal. She goes, the holy water is right there. You're going to go get it and go upstairs and throw it around your room with some salt. I'm like, why are you not doing it? I think you should do it. And I'm like, okay, this is insane. So I take the salt, I take the holy water, I go upstairs. My sisters, I'll come with you, but I'm staying at the bottom of the stairs. Everybody's acting scared. And so I'm like, okay, I'm not crazy. This is something. So I have the holy water, I have the salt. I go upstairs. I have the holy water in a little cup, and I have the salt. I go upstairs, and so I'm like throwing the holy water around, just a little flap, flap, flap around, and I have the salt, and I throw it onto my bed, and it sizzles. Bitch! I never ran down a flight of stairs faster in my life. I don't even think I touched one step. I jumped from the top 11 steps down, bow, hit it. I was downstairs the next flight, bow, hit it. I didn't stop for shit. I said the only way I'm going back up there is if y'all bring a priest to hose this house down with a fire truck of holy water. I'm not playing at all with y'all. And so my mama got the priest to come, and he blessed the whole house, top to bottom. He didn't miss no floor, no nook, no cranny. And I never had an experience like that again.
I've deliberately grouped these final 4 experiences together and saved them for last. Vampires have always held an absolute fascination for me, and so I could not help but share these experiences, remembering, of course, that vampires are more likely to be the energy-sucking sort, rather than the generic fanged blood-sucking being, as is generally depicted. But, of course, they do exist. A rideshare driving and follow-up experience from Fat Girl Freestyle.
I'm a rideshare driver in New Orleans. So, of course, I encounter all types of people from all walks of life. So one particular ride was very interesting. Now, this was a couple of years ago when this occurred. And I'm going to tell you, for the most part, I remember what she said. I do not remember what she looked like. And there are some details that when the experience was over, like I had completely forgotten some things. But anyway, so I'm riding, pick up this passenger, and I remember our conversation. And the craziest thing is I can remember her voice. I can, and even as I'm telling you this, I can hear her voice in my head. And I can even picture like this part of her face around her mouth, her lips. I can see them moving as she's talking to me. And I remember her hand being on my shoulder, and I remember what it felt like when she touched me. But a lot of other stuff was just completely erased. So I pick her up, and I do know that we were having conversation. I talked to many of my passengers, and she is telling me I have really great energy. So I told her thank you. She asked me some things about myself, nothing too private, nothing with too many details. So I just gave her some general info. And I remember her telling me that she wasn't from here. That I do remember. And then she proceeds to tell me how much she loved New Orleans, how much she loved being there, living there, etc., etc. I do recall asking her where she was from originally, and all she told me was that she was from very far away. And it's funny again because I'm hearing her voice in my head as this is weird. And I've never shared this story with anybody, so TikTok, you're getting it first. She touched my shoulder at one point, And this is where things got really strange. She touched my shoulder, and I felt like I just froze. And even as I'm talking to you right now, I can distinctly remember that feeling of feeling frozen. And my hands were on the wheel because I could see my hands on the wheel. Car wasn't moving. And being frozen in that moment, I hear her voice, but not like I'm here talking to you. In my head, I hear her voice telling me, don't be scared, that she's not going to harm me. And then after that, we're moving again. And I remember turning and looking like that, and she was sitting back in the seat and her hands were on her lap. And I said, what did you do to me? And she just smiled and she says, I just leached some of your energy. And I said, what? She said, I just leached some of your energy. She said, this is going to sound crazy, but I can assure you it's true. I'm a vampire. She said, but I'm not the type of vampire that you've been taught about in books and movies. She said, those types of vampires exist, but they're very rare these days. I'm a vampire that feeds off of energy, and all I have to do is touch you to get it. She said New Orleans is a great place for her and her kind to exist, and that there are quite a few members of their tribe, is what she called them. I think I remember this part of our conversation so significantly because I believe when she touched me, she implanted something in my mind, whether you want to call it a memory or a thought or an idea. But she gave me something of herself, probably, to where I can recall this portion of the interaction between us. Maybe she knew that eventually I would share the story with others and therefore maybe make it a little bit more acceptable for them to start, for her and her members to start presenting themselves. I don't know. I don't know why she even chose me for this. But she told me that there are vampires that survive off of good energy. There are vampires that survive off of bad energy. There are vampires that survive off of sexual energy. And there are vampires that survive off of blood. And New Orleans is the only place in the world where you can find members of all four of those vampire tribes. Maybe she wanted me to remember this portion of it as a warning. I don't know. I know she wasn't lying just because of how I felt. And even now, it's crazy because I still feel like her hand is on my shoulder, which makes me wonder, when she touched me, did she create some type of psychic connection between the two of us? I don't know, but I think I need to end this. Anyway, I don't remember where I dropped her off at. I don't even remember dropping her off. The next thing I remember doing clearly was being in a part of town that I didn't remember how I even got there. And it was like 2 hours later. And I was just in a parking lot. And I know it sounds weird, y'all. I probably shouldn't even recorded this. I probably shouldn't even be talking. I probably should not even be talking about this. I shouldn't.
Yo, it's a Fat Girl Freestyle here. I just woke up from the weirdest dream. It's 1:56 in the morning. Struggling to even get my thoughts together. Remember the other day I told y'all about the encounter I had with the vampire. I said in the video that I shouldn't even be talking about it. She was in my dream, y'all. And how I knew it was her was her voice. Remember I told y'all when I was talking about it in the video, it's like I could hear her voice in my head. Well, I knew it was her in the dream. Her voice, I could not see her face. It's like her face was like constantly in shadow in the dream. But let me try and keep this as short as possible. So we have a street in New Orleans, Esplanade Avenue. So in the dream, I'm on Esplanade Avenue, and it's during the daytime, but like the street was deserted. There was nobody out there, no cars passing, nobody was walking, nothing. It was just me. And in the dream, I'm just kind of looking around, like trying to figure out what's going on. And y'all, it felt like I was really like my heart is beating. Ooh, because it felt like I was really there. Anyway, I'm sorry. Let me keep going. So I'm walking down Esplanade. Like I said, it's daytime, but the street is deserted. Nobody is there. It's just me. And I'm just kind of walking, looking around. And I can feel myself trying to figure out what's going on, because it was almost like I know I'm supposed to be in my bed sleeping, but why am I here right now kind of thing. And I heard a woman calling my name, like, Kimberly, Kimberly, like that, but from a distance. And I started looking around, and in the dream, I'm like, hello, hello, but nothing is coming out. Like, there's no sound coming out of my mouth. Like, I hear my voice in my head saying hello, but there's like no sound coming out. So I hear this woman calling my name, and I could not resist the urge to walk towards the direction the voice was coming from. I could not resist the urge. So it's like I'm being almost like something is in my chest, like pulling me towards where this voice is coming from. And I'm not even walking. And y'all, I know this sounds so crazy. I know this sounds so fucking crazy. In a dream, I'm not even walking. It's like I'm floating towards this woman calling, Kimberly, Kimberly. I'm just floating towards her. I can't stop myself. So I'm getting closer, and the voice is getting louder. It's still soft, but I'm hearing it louder. And that's when it hit me. And in the dream, I'm like, it's her, it's her, it's her, it's her. Like, that's what's playing over and over and over in my mind. It's like, it's her, it's her, it's her, it's her. And she's steady calling my name, Kim. And I'm just being pulled down Esplanade towards the sound of this voice, of this woman who I told y'all she's an energy vampire. This is so fucking crazy. I knew I shouldn't have told y'all that story. So anyway, I get pulled, and then I like stop in the middle of the street, and something turns me towards this house. And I've seen this house on Esplanade. Like, the house that I stopped in front of in the dream is a real house that exists on Esplanade Avenue. I don't know who lives in it. I don't know the history of the house, but I know it when I'm passing down the street. I know it when I see it. So I'm not in control of my body in the dream. So I just turn towards the house, and I look, and I hear that voice, Kimberly, Kimberly. And she says, come inside, join me. And I start getting pulled towards the house. And the front door of the house, it doesn't swing open, but it opens, and it wasn't really slow, but just opening. And I'm watching it open. Can't see anything beyond, because it's just darkness beyond the door. Now, keep in mind, it's daylight in the dream, but it is dark in the house. The hallway, or whatever it is that's past the entrance where this door is dark. I can't see anything. And I'm feeling my feet. This is crazy. I'm feeling my toes drag up the steps of the house. Like, feeling my toes drag up the steps of the house. And right when I get to the top step, right by the door, somebody reached out and grabbed my shoulder like this and pulled me back. And when I went back like that in the dream, they pulled me back into my body. And I sat straight up in my bed. Y'all, this shit is crazy. I knew I shouldn't have told y'all that story. And I knew when she touched me, she created some kind of psychic connection with me. I knew it.
Some encounters aren't necessarily scary, but more mysterious and make you think. Like this one, a New Orleans encounter from Star Night Rose 1.
Hey, Spooky Lovelies, how old was I? I had to have been 22? Yeah, I was 22. And I went to New Orleans to see a buddy of mine. It was his birthday. Okay. And I was only there for 3 days. And we went to a vampire masquerade ball. All right. Now, I did the sightseeing and all that jazz, and he showed me some of the local places to go to for food and whatnot, and it was fun. I had a great time. But we were going to the vampire masquerade ball at the Voodoo House of Balloons. And I remember I was wearing my black dress. It's kind of nice fancy style. My hair was blonde. I had beautiful makeup on, vampire fangs, and a choker. And I'm like, I look good. And we went, and there was a lot of people there, a lot of awesome costumes. He went off and just started visiting with some of his friends, which was fine. I was there to support things because he's never had like a date on his birthday. We weren't together or anything, but I was like, well, I'll go visit your date. I'll make sure I look good. You can introduce me to your friends. That's whatever. It's your day. And so he went off and hung out with his friends for a little bit. I'm vibing by the bar. And I remember I had this really strong feeling like somebody was looking at me intensely. You know how you could tell when somebody's watching you and you get that creeped out feeling? This was kind of like that creeped out feeling. But it felt more or less more curiosity for me. It wasn't like, ew, who's looking at me? It was more like, hey, who's looking at me? Across the dance floor, I remember, it was hard to see him at first, but across the dance floor, which was all lit up, over on the other side of the wall, there was this guy, and I could tell he was tall. He had a black suit on with a blue vest that would shimmer into like gray color, depending on the light. It was really neat. I haven't seen a vest like it since, actually. And he had this mask, this black mask on, like a masquerade mask. And it was plain looking, but it looked good on him, right? Piercing blue eyes. My God, piercing blue eyes. Brown hair, not slick back, but it was back and loosey, enough to grab if you needed to. Anyway, I was just like, I was flabbergasted seeing him, and I was like, and he was gorgeous. But then some woman did this ridiculous laugh, and I looked at her. When I looked back to try and find the guy, he was gone. I couldn't see him anymore. I was like, and I kept form a little bit, couldn't see him. I was like, all right. Well, then my buddy came to get me to introduce me to a couple of his friends. I was kind of some stairs. So I went up there, we were chatting for a little bit. And I remember I looked over to the dance floor to look at the costumes and stuff again, because there's this guy. Dude, he was like 7 feet tall. He was obviously on stilts. He had spikes all on him. This costume had spikes all on him. And this giant mouth with fangs and a green and blue light up eyes. And he looked so cool. And I have no idea if that was like an original costume or if it was like from a video game or something. I don't know. I'd never seen anything like it before. It was so cool. So he caught my attention, right? And so I was looking at him. I was like, oh, that's neat. And I'm looking at the other costumes. And all of a sudden there's that guy. There's a guy on the dance floor. And he's looking at me. I didn't even have the feeling like he was watching me that time. I just noticed him. Or maybe that's why I noticed him. I don't know. But he got a motion for me to come down. And I was like, I gotta go. I'm gonna go dance. You have fun. I'll be back later. And I went down. I don't dance. Okay. I do not dance. I'm terrible at it. I'll step on your toes and accidentally hit your nose. Like, I didn't mean to rhyme. But I'm a terrible dancer. Okay. And we danced. We slow danced for a couple of songs. Dude never said a word to me. He never said anything to me. He's smiled at me a couple of times. I remember thinking, my God, those fangs look awesomely real. I wonder where he got them. And I'm thinking maybe Father Sebastian or something. They were really good. And it didn't register anything. Because we're at a vampire masquerade ball. People were wearing fangs. People had cool fangs and terrible fangs. Because people were just like vampires. So it didn't register in my brain. But my God, was I entranced by that man. And we were dancing and just for a few songs. And then my buddy got my attention. And I remembered where I was and why. I was like, oh, I'm here celebrating my buddy's birthday. I gotta go. Didn't see him again. Okay, I left, didn't see that guy. For like a year and a half. For like a year and a half, I didn't see that guy, okay? I'm back in Colorado. I had a terrible breakup with an ex. And a couple of my friends, they were like, oh, we're going to take you out to show you a good time. No pressure, no nothing. You're just going to go out, dance, and have a few drinks. So they took me to a club that's in downtown Denver called The Church. I've only been to the church once. And I remember, again, I'm back by the wall. They're off dancing. They're having a good time. They'd come check on me from time to time. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just watching people. I love to people watch. And I look over to the wall that was next to the wall I was at. And there's that guy right there. Not in New Orleans. He's here. And he's wearing all black. And he's not wearing the masquerade mask. But he's right there. And he's gorgeous. My God. I don't think there's anybody I can compare him to. I don't think there is. But he was, chiseled and nice eyebrows, thick, but neatly trimmed. And that's a weird thing to mark on. And he was beautiful. He came over, again, never said anything, smiled at me, still had teeth in, if they were fake. I'm pretty sure they weren't. They looked way too real. There was no line of any kind anywhere. I was close enough to look. There was no plastic look. They looked enameled. It was, if they were fake, if this guy was not a real vampire, I want to know where he got his fangs. But we danced. That's all we did. We danced. Never said anything. Not once. We danced. It's the end of the night. Bar was closing. I had to go. My friends were going to take me home. He kissed me. I've never been kissed like that before. I've never been kissed like that since. I'm 35 now. Seen him again. All this time. But pretty sure that dude was a vampire. Twice now. And he recognized me. I didn't look the same then. My hair color was different. I looked different. But twice now? Anyway, happy huntings.
The Lyft passengers and follow-up from Essence Creations 27.
New Year's Eve, I was driving Lyft. I picked up an order. And it ended up being at like a place that used to be a church, but it wasn't a church anymore, obviously, if you saw the festivities that was going on. There were like people with cloaks and like dark hair and heavy eyeliner. And there was like a red glow from the building coming out. 4 guys got into my car. As soon as they got into the car, I felt a chill. And yes, it was winter, but it was a different kind of chill. I turned around and looked at them, and I immediately knew they were vampires. And it wasn't even just like a thought. It was more so a knowing. Before they got into the car, I was thinking like maybe they were devil worshippers because I had seen like a goat head and like the typical symbols that you see associated with it. But I was like, no, these are vampires. There were 2 brunettes and 2 blondes. They all had blue eyes. Not that that mean anything, but their eyes were almost hypnotically blue. They were so clear, you could see through their, like, not their soul, but I can't even describe it. Their skin was white, but not white like crayon white, but it was very pale, but it was not a pale like, some like white people are like, oh, I'm so pale. Even like people with red hair, how pale. It was still a different kind of pale because even regular people, when they're pale, there's still some warmness to their skin. Like their skin looked cold. I don't know how to describe it, but it was more so the feeling of me knowing. Immediately, I start to panic. My heart is racing. I'm feeling like, is it too late to reject the call? Like, can I even ask them to leave the vehicle? And then I started thinking, okay, if I am panicking and my blood pressure is rising, then I'm like pushing more blood through my veins, which may mean that I may seem more appetizing to them. This is all stuff that's going through my mind. The man behind me, the blind, who was like in the middle, touches my shoulder, and immediately it's like somebody poured warm honey over me. Like that is the calm just spreading down my body. It was like immediately I felt relaxed, almost like I was in a trance kind of there, but like watching myself. I can't even really describe it. And I knew at that moment that I wasn't necessarily in danger. So then the guy is like, well, our car is only a few blocks away, which I could tell from looking at the app. And he's like, but before we get there, we need you to answer a question. And you have to think very carefully about this. So now I'm like, okay, this answer is going to determine if I go home to my children. And it could just be my imagination and like me jumping the gun, and he could have been joking, but it didn't feel joke. So he's like, okay, well, we have 2 separate cars. How would you group us together? Who should ride with who? What? So I'm like, I look back at them and they're smiling and they're kind of giggling. Now their teeth don't look like regular teeth, but they don't look like the typical vampire teeth either. But they definitely did not look like human teeth. Their canines were a little bit more pronounced, but not in a dramatic, fake way. I can't even freaking describe it. And actually, if I had to describe them, to sketch them out right now, I couldn't even, because it's like they're a memory, but not like a typical memory, like a memory behind a memory. I can't describe it. But anyways, I knew it. I'm like, you're vampires. Yes. I heard the answer in my head. No, I'm looking at them through because I'm like, if they lunge for jugular, I'm gonna crush us all. But I grouped the opposite hair colors together. And the guy said, well, why'd you do that? I said, I don't know. It just felt right. He said, excellent choice. He took out his phone and he's like, I'm going to start my car now. And I'm like, you can start your car from my car? And he's like, yeah, but we like you. You'll get home safe. Good. Like, you'll get home safe tonight. Have a good night. And I was like, yeah, I was kind of thinking that, doing Lyft on New Year's Eve could be dangerous because, like, who knows what kind. I was trying to make it seem like I didn't think they were the danger, but just let them know, like, in case they heard me panicking. But anyways, they got out and they gave me my biggest tip of the night. You would think that would have been my last ride for the night, but no, I kept going. I made it home and I didn't tell any other person about this story because, like, are you supposed to share vampire stories? I don't know. However, I just did. So just know that there are other beings in this world besides us. And maybe they're not all so dangerous. So yesterday I posted a video about how I met 4 vampires New Year's Eve in Chicago. And I want to respond to a lot of comments I had because I described the scene when I pulled up to the location, which was a church that has obviously been revamped to be some kind of event space. And everyone's like, oh, you thought they were vampires because they were goth? Because I said that when I pulled up, like, people had on dark cloaks and like makeup, and like people had a goat head on a stick, and I saw people like carrying like the 6-point stars. And so I was like, damn, did I pull up on some devil worshippers or something? That's initially what I thought. That does not mean that the 4 men that got into my car looked like that. They were not dressed goth at all. They did not look like those people. In fact, they stuck out like a sore thumb. In fact, they weren't like standing there when I first pulled up. When I first pulled up, I checked the scene, and that's when I was like, damn, should I leave? Because I don't know what's going on here. This looked crazy. But when they walked up and I saw them just in regular clothes, looking like old money, actually, I felt a sense of relief because I was like, oh, okay. These motherfuckers, like, they weren't even a part of this. So it wasn't until they got in the car and I felt the energy shift. And then I didn't even really, when I felt the energy shift, I still just, start like pushed the ride and went on the ride. But one of them sat next to me. 3 of them sat behind me. And that's kind of when I really started looking like, well, what? Like, I didn't know what that feeling was. Like, the first initial feeling, it could have been like, are they murderers? Like, but then it was like a gut instinct that just like inside was like, these are vampires. And then the more, like, now I'm studying and I'm looking at him because I'm freaking out. So let me start off by saying, I'm from the north side of Chicago. I don't know if y'all know anything about the north side of Chicago, but we have Belmont. We have any kind of person you could possibly think of. So I'm very familiar with the goth community and what they look like and that whole aesthetic. In fact, the high school I went to had a goth community. The guys in my car were not goth.
Chicago encounter from Precious_Native.
I'm from Chicago, and there's a park called Garfield Park. It's on Hamlin and Jackson, like right before Independence split and turned into Jackson. No, it turned into Hamlin. Yeah, right before it split, it turned into Hamlin. But anyway, on Jackson and Hamlin, it's a park called Garfield Park. And that park has a viaduct right there. You can go up under the thing. So me and my friends, one night, we was sitting at the park because we stayed right across the street from the park. We stayed 214 South Hamlin. It's a white building right on the corner. We was sitting there. It was like right after the baseball game. They have an annual baseball game out there every year. Different companies come out there. My mom had a friend that worked for the garbage company, the garbage trucks or sanitation. So we sit out there. We was playing one night. So we decided to play hide go seek. But it was hide go get it anyway. Badass kids. So a couple of us ran under the viaduct and a couple of us was on top of the bridge. Now, if you know the bridge, you know what I'm talking about. We come running from up under there. Somebody was like, it's a man under there. It's a man under there. And we look back and we seen the man up under there. He was standing there watching us. And he was like, what you want? And he was like, I'm trying to see if one of y'all will come help me come find my cat. And my friend was like, what you mean find your cat? Ain't no cats in this park. We've been playing this park all day and we ain't seen the cat yet. He was like, no, I meant my bat. We look like bat? What the hell? No, we ain't seen none of those either. I ain't never seen no bat in my life. We come running from up under the viaduct. When we come running from up under there, we look back, dude, gone. But 5 bats fly up out of that viaduct. And that was crazy as hell. Never seen a bat in my goddamn life. Whole time living in Chicago, I think I was probably about 10 or 11 years old. Never seen a bat in my life. I know they say when you look up at night and there's birds flying, those are bats, but hell, I never even seen a bird fly at night at this point. The bats came flying up out of there. So we take off running. We run to our building. When we trying to get in the downstairs in the lobby, we ring the bells and all that. Ain't nobody trying to let us in. We look back, the man is standing at our fence. I start screaming, my girl started screaming, the boy started screaming, like we are damn near went crazy. We looked around, he's standing there, and then we just seen bats come flying around his head. And they was, baby, they was angry because you could hear you could hear their wings flapping and all this other crazy mess. Man, that man was a vampire. Never seen a day in my goddamn life. And it was a black man. He wasn't white either. He was black. He was black as hell with blue eyes. His teeth didn't look like the vampire teeth. His teeth didn't look like that. His teeth were straight across. It looked like some fresh veneers. Like he had all front teeth in his mouth. That was crazy. That was scary as hell to us. Never seen nothing like that in my life. And I never seen that man again after that day. That was crazy. But we stopped hollering and we started looking around. The man was gone. So we ran back to the fence to see if we saw him. We was looking down the street, looking both ways. When we looked left the first time, he wasn't there. We looked right, we looked left again. He was standing right on the corner, right up under a light. And he was like, I see y'all seeing my bats. Y'all want to come play with me? Y'all want to come have some fun? I'm right down the street. And I tell y'all parents that y'all went there, and we thinking like, what the fuck? Hell no. We started hollering, no, get the fuck out of our face. Because that's what my grandma told me to do. And I told my friends, my grandma told me if a strange man approach you, trying to get you to do something, you start yelling, helping, you start cussing. Cuss as loud as you possibly can, because as soon as you start cussing, as little as we are, somebody is going to look at them kids cussing. And that's exactly what we did. I wasn't going. I told them, y'all, fuck that. We not finna do none of that shit. We ran back to the gate. Looked back, the man was gone. But we looked up and we saw bats flying away. So bats do have something to do with vampires. That is definitely a true statement because I never seen that man again. I never heard about him. Me and my friends really didn't talk about it too long after that because that scared the hell out of us. told my grandma. My grandma didn't let me go outside for like 2 weeks after that because she thought somebody was trying to kidnap us. It was crazy. And then, like a month and a half after that, we found a lady unalive behind our building. And she was bloody as hell. And it looked like somebody had took her neck and ripped it open. I believe that man did that to her. And that's crazy.
Thank you to all the incredible TikTok creators and storytellers who shared their haunting experiences and kept our imaginations alive in the Shadowlands. Your stories, insights, and bravery in delving into the unknown have made this journey richer and more thrilling for all of us. As we bring this final Halloween special to a close, let's keep alive the spirit of curiosity and wonder, even when the veil lifts and the night grows silent. To my listeners, thank you for joining us, for walking through the Shadowlands, and for keeping the magic of these stories burning brightly. Until we meet again, may your nights be just mysterious enough to keep you wondering. This is Marianne bidding you farewell from the Shadowlands. Thanks for listening to this episode. Ka kite.